Better Together podcast.
Welcome to the Better Together podcast from the Fuquay Arena Chamber of Commerce. Here today with Brad Marshall from Greater Culture. I'm going to get that right, Brad. Greater
the alliteration
Culture
is tough.
CrossFit. I'm Marty Woodward, and we're here in the Dashmore Conference Room, sponsored by Rescue Wood Rehab. And Brad, so awesome to begin to host the Better Together podcast here with you. But now I have an opportunity to put you on the spot and give you an opportunity to kind of answer some of the questions that, like our guests will.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be here. It's been fun hosting the podcast and asking other people the questions, but it is fun sometimes to share a little bit about the things we're passionate about as well.
So tell me, Brad, right out of the gate, how did you open up a CrossFit place? What's that all about?
Yeah, to start that story, I would say probably was about 7 or 8 years ago, where I think like for a lot of coaches is you start to figure out your own health and fitness journey. And I was an athlete in high school and college, and then after that kind of did random workouts here and there, but wasn't as maybe in shape as I thought I could be or would like to be, and got married. And then sure enough had a friend who basically was like, hey, you should try this thing out. It's called CrossFit. It's a group class. It's kind of like when you were an athlete, you get to go and work out. I'm like, that sounds good. So I went, and sure enough, I did really enjoy it. It kind of took me back a little bit, and that started my own health and fitness journey of learning a little bit more about movement and a little bit more about nutrition. And so got into working out and building my own healthy habits. And then a couple of years into that, decided to coach. And I was like, I think it would be fun to get in front of the class and lead them and see if we can help people get fitter and happier and healthier. So started to coach, and then what inevitably happens for a lot of folks is you kind of get that little itch that's like, what would happen if I did this, and opened up my own gym? And so about 2.5 years ago, took the leap of faith and actually started Greater Culture CrossFit out of my garage. So a little 20 by 20 garage, and had some friends and some other folks come over, and we ran 3 classes a day out of our garage. And then about 1.5 years ago, an opportunity came to take over a space here in Fuquay Arena. And so now we have a commercial space and a building, and we've been running classes in there for the last 1.5 years. So it's been a fun 8-year journey that has, for the last 2.5 years now, really just trying to help people figure out ways that they can get happier, healthier, and a little bit fitter.
So I know that's a small, that's the short story. There's a bigger story. So tell me a little bit about, your athletic history. What sports did you play? How did you kind of, get to the point you are at now?
Yeah, so growing up, played all the sports, settled in on basketball, football, and baseball. Went to Division III school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I'm from, and played football and baseball there. So both sports, really enjoyed my time there. Small schools, like 1,000 kids. And from there, I got really fascinated with the sports psychology or performance psychology. I was always really curious of how people are able to perform the way that they'd like to on the field. Probably for some shortcomings of my own of feeling like there was games or moments that didn't go the way I'd like, and trying to figure out why that was. So went and studied sports psychology. And after I graduated from there, that actually brought me to my first job outside of grad school, which was down at Campbell University. Go Camels. And so moved down to Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, and worked with the student athletes down there, which was really fun, helping them not only excel in the classroom, but figure out ways to help them excel on the field as well. And then from there, actually had the opportunity to go work down at Fort Bragg and work with the soldiers. And for about 4 or 5 years, help folks get ready for upcoming deployments, or just figuring out ways that they could take the stressors that they're dealing with and find a way to perform the way they'd like, both inside and outside of their day jobs. So that's kind of the path that got me on this performance route of really being fascinated and curious with how does the way people move and work out, and how does the way they think, and how does the way that they eat allow them to, what I would say is thrive, or not only be happier and healthier, but feel like they're getting the most out of life. And so then once I started learning my own fitness journey, learn more about CrossFit and movement, nutrition certifications, mindfulness certifications. If it was human performance related, it's something I've studied and looked at to try and figure out ways to help people get the most out of their lives.
So let me get this straight. So from Milwaukee to Bowie's Creek to Fort Bragg to Fuquay Arena, and now we have the beginning of Greater Culture CrossFit. I knew I would get it. And so, what challenges did you face in the beginning? I mean, you mentioned opening up in your garage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot of businesses do that.
Yeah, it was the leap of faith. There was a small group of folks who were like, yeah, like if you open up and you raise the doors in your garage, like we'll come. So I mean, there was a handful of people, and we tried to figure out a way to make it work. So the challenges in the beginning were figuring out, one, was it feasible? You know, is this something that is a hobby? Is this just something that is we're doing for fun? And so we did a whole year in the garage, and during that time, continued to try and invest in business mentorship and understanding what it's like to run a business, not just to run good classes, which was helpful. But the challenge was, how do we find a space then that allows us to take this idea and this concept and this sort of like little incubator we had and turn it into something that was more substantial? Because as we started looking around Fuquay Arena, you know, real estate in the commercial space is not cheap, and so it's either you're investing a huge amount on the front end to try and get in a space, or you're trying to potentially remodel a space that is up for sale or up for rent. So over that first year, the big challenges were, okay, if we can help people through our classes, how do we figure out a way to grow and scale this business to reach more people, essentially? And we were very fortunate that there was a gym in town that was the owner was interested in making a transition, and so word of a friend came about, and we had discussions, and we were fortunate enough that we were able to take over the space and rebrand it and create it into what is now Greater Culture CrossFit. But for the challenges on the front end, it was understanding, like, what does this actually mean to run a business? How do we figure out the space that's going to help us to be successful? And then with any business too, it's how do you figure out a way to tell people that you actually exist and what you can do and how you can help people? And that's something that we're still trying to figure out and learn, as with all the areas around business as well. So those are some of the big challenges, at least in the front end, and even things that we're still working through today.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Some of the initial challenges in business kind of continue through the lifespan of the business, because you're always working on something, always trying to get better. So what makes Greater Culture CrossFit unique? I mean, what differentiates you?
Yeah, one of the things we really pride ourselves on, one, is we're trying to be as consistent as possible in what product and what service you're getting. There's a lot of opportunities to go and find fitness, whether it's personal trainers, small group fitness, or larger class fitness facilities. And one of the things we really try and hang our hat on is, regardless of who the coach is, you're going to get a very similar experience, the way that we're going to communicate with you, the way that we're going to interact with you, figure out what's going to be best for you that particular day in class, and how we can help you to move forward in an effective way. So we really try and pride ourselves on the consistency aspect of it. And then the follow-on to that is, I think with any fitness place, is the community is a huge aspect. To have a support system, not just the coaches, but the people you start to interact with and meet, they start to become either friends or people you hang out with, or just your support system that keeps you going, especially when, you know, there's days and weeks and months where maybe things aren't going the way you'd like, but you've got this system and this network of people who can help and encourage you. So creating that space is something we're really passionate about, of a group of people who are interested in improving and getting better. They come to work out for an hour a day, but then you start to realize, like, there's other areas of their life that are improving as a result of what they're seeing in the gym. So those are some of the things I think we try really hard to hang our hat on: the consistency, the consistent product, the communication, and then just creating that community that allows people to thrive.
So, you know, I'm pretty good at some things, and lunch is one of those, and dinner is the other. What's CrossFit? I mean, so kind of define it for folks, if you would. You know, what is CrossFit, and you know, really, how do you define that for folks who are interested in joining something like that?
Yeah, and what's interesting is CrossFit has put out their definition, and essentially it's 6 words. It's constantly varied, just means each day the workouts are going to change up. It's functional movements, so you're going to see us doing full body lifts and different movements to challenge you in unique ways. And it's done at a relatively high intensity, just meaning wherever you're at for that day, your goal is to move a little bit more, a little bit faster than maybe what you were doing previously or the way you came in. And so what that looks like in a group class environment is we're going to do things that are going to help people build strength. You're going to see us use dumbbells and kettlebells and barbells. You're going to see us use different pieces of cardio equipment. We've got rowers and bikes and running and all the things. So there's an unlimited number of movements that we can do, and we're going to vary the way that they look and how they show up each day. And then you're going to have a coach who guides you through from the warm-up to the workout to the cool-down, really trying to help figure out how do we help you build strength, build some cardiorespiratory endurance, just get your heart healthy, help you to build things like balance and strength and all those things. So in its most simple phrase, they would tell you it's constantly varied functional movements done at high intensity. And what that looks like, well, when you come in and experience a class, that's where you'll really get a taste and a feel for what CrossFit is.
Okay, so and I was a college baseball player, and flexibility was something that we always worked on many years ago. And now I see that flexibility, beginning to not be so flexible. What does CrossFit do for flexibility for those folks that they may have a couple extra years on them, compared to yourself?
Yeah, it's amazing the span of the clientele that we have. We have young teenagers in, we have 50, 60 plus year olds who are coming in and moving. And one of the best pieces of advice I've heard from a variety of folks is that movement is the lotion that our body needs to continue to be flexible or be mobile. In today's day and age, we sit a lot, and that unfortunately gets muscles and joints and things a little tighter than we might like them to be. And then all of a sudden we hop off the couch or out of the desk and go try and run or work out, and all of a sudden your body's like, whoa, what are you doing? So for us, this idea of flexibility, it's using our bodies in what we'd call these functional movements of, can we get into a squat, or can we just sit down and stand up? Can we put our arms over our head? And if we can't, then we're going to look at how do we continue to challenge our body in a way to get access to some of those positions again. Because we can see that there's people who can live into those later years and seem to have the ability to move and do certain things. And it really does come down to having a consistent movement approach, making movement part of your consistent lifestyle. And then, as much as possible, continuing to be strong in some of those different positions as you get older. So in terms of what it looks like for us, we're going to stretch and we're going to get you warmed up before the workout. Going through the movements will help your joints and your muscles to feel better and get you into some positions that maybe you feel like you've lost. And if we do that consistently over time, you ideally will start to feel a little bit better.
So we're gonna do this podcast from now on, the Better Together podcast from now on. We're going to have to stand up.
Stand up desk, get the walking pad out.
We're going to walk around for it in the future. As you're growing your business, you have certainly gotten involved with the community, the Chamber of Commerce being one of those aspects. So can you give us some examples, some other ways you're involved in the local Fuquay Arena community?
Yeah, one of the things that we're constantly trying to do is figure out ways we can try and connect with others and figure out who is looking for and interested in improving the quality of their life through movement and nutrition. And so we've partnered with other local businesses and done pop-ups as vendors at like coffee shops or at little local pop-ups. As we've gotten more and more involved with the chamber, we've sponsored different events to try and get branding and marketing out at different golf events. We've done the breakfast that we've hosted, just trying to connect with other business owners and try and find or identify people, whether it's them or employees they know that might be interested or intrigued by what we do. We do have a podcast as well, and so we're continually trying to share with the world what we're about, having conversations with different guests, trying to be as active as possible on social media. So it's one of those things where you sort of try a lot of different things, and it always sort of amazes you when you hear the stats around Fuquay Arena is at 40 to 50,000 people, and it's growing so fast. And when you've been open, even for only a year and a half, 2.5 years like we have, you just sort of assume people kind of know you exist, but you very humbly realize most people don't know you exist, so you can never advertise or communicate too much of who you are and what you're about.
And so as a business owner, what kind of avenues have you used to promote your business or to advertise out there? You've mentioned a few of the things, involved with pop-ups and that kind of thing, but is there some maybe traditional advertising you're doing or social media? And we'll talk about the podcast a little bit more. So don't mention that yet.
Yeah. So the only thing that we've dabbled in, I would say, is we've done a little bit of work with Google Ads, because when we were first starting, we found it important for us to try and create a strong Google business profile. just to try and move ourselves up the ranks so that if people were Googling CrossFit near me or gym or fitness, we wanted to continue to be one of those businesses that would show up on the front page. So a lot of things, whether it's getting more Google business reviews, whether it was posting consistent blog posts, things like that helped us to move up the Google rankings. And then you can also spend money to do Google ads where then they can sponsor or basically put you near the top. So we dabbled a little bit with that. And the other big thing for us is, the word of mouth piece and the referrals is a really big piece. When people see somebody or hear somebody who's had an experience with the business and maybe allows them to walk in and not be so maybe intimidated or concerned, that's always a big help too. So anytime we see referrals or folks come in and have a good experience and share it with their friends, family, etc., that's always a really helpful piece as well. So those are a few of the avenues I think in the short term that we've been in the commercial space we've seen be helpful. But we're always continuing to try and learn and grow, and I think the trends and what people are saying is helpful or working are changing every day too. So as a business owner, there's always some new problem to solve or new thing to try and figure out.
So search engine optimization, SEO.
There you go.
So if you're a new business owner or aspiring business owner, be aware that yes, SEO will be something you'll become very aware of.
Yes,
you won't know all the answers, I promise, but you will be aware of it. So so many other follow-up questions to this. I want to start with the podcast. You started a podcast for Greater Culture CrossFit. Tell us about the origins of that and why you decided, hey, I think this is something I want to do.
Yeah, so back when I was in graduate school, I studied sports psychology in the counseling department. So the idea of having one-on-one conversations was something that I've always really, really enjoyed. And I was somebody who consumed a lot of podcasts. I really enjoyed listening to them. And I've always appreciated asking people questions to try and understand their story and see what I could learn from them. And so that's sort of how the Greater Culture podcast started. Was I had gotten an opportunity to meet so many amazing people in different fields that I started to ask them questions about how they coach, how they're a massage therapist, how they're a chiropractor, how they're a PT, and what I could learn from them that might be useful or helpful to share with not just the members of our gym, but members or people in general. When they have those questions around what should I be eating or how should I be moving or, hey, I've got this back pain thing, what should I do about that? So it's been a really fun, just sort of passion project for me of I just get to sit down and ask a lot of questions for people who are pretty smart and know what they're doing. And along the way, there's a few episodes where I get to share some of my insights and perspectives as well. But it's a lot of hour-long, long-form type conversations where they get to share their story, their passion, and they get to share how they help people along the way. And been fortunate enough to have some of the different folks who are involved in health and wellness in the Fuquay Arena area, coaches and massage therapists and things like that. So there's some really great episodes in there if you want to learn about some of the folks in the community here.
So you mentioned earlier some the different coaches that are involved with your business. So tell us about the kind of that team that you have that you've developed and begun to work with here in Fuquay Arena.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. We've got 7 coaches now who help run classes. We offer 28 classes a week, everything from bright and early in the morning, 5:15 a.m., through lunchtime, through the evening. So lots of opportunities for folks to come in and work out. One of the things that I've learned and our mentors that I'm involved with have shared is that the coaches are a huge, huge piece of the people's experience, the relationships they're going to build, and what they're going to come to think about the business or Greater Culture. So when we first started off, there was only really 2, myself and Chelsea. And then once we grew out of the garage, my wife started to coach a little bit, Emily, and then we started to have some other folks who were interested. They were members and they were like, hey, I would love to start coaching. And so went through the process of helping them to, whether they either currently had the certifications or get them the certifications that then they could start to coach. And so the idea of coach development is something that I'm really passionate about, where we're having meetings talking about different topics, ways we can best serve the community, what are ways we can continue to improve the way in which we're delivering the product that people see on the floor, the way that we connect folks. So that's all a piece of the puzzle that I think makes Greater Culture a great place. Is, we're really passionate about the coaches we have. We're passionate about developing them, and we're passionate about the experience that folks who come to class are going to get as a result of it.
So I spent many years in training and development and training, coaching. It's one and the same in many ways. Providing feedback and working with your team. I'm sure you give feedback back and forth. What is that like experience like? Because sometimes people don't realize that it's good to get feedback, even if it's not maybe positive. It's good to get that feedback. Is that a process that you guys use in Greater Culture?
Yeah, something we're I think always striving for is I think there's feedback on different levels. There's what we would call the formal feedback, where as a team we've identified what the ideal class experience looks like, and it's something that we're continuing to try and work towards of having an evaluation where a coach is going to sit down and watch you lead a class and is going to take notes on things you did well, maybe some areas for improvement. So that's something that we're continuing to work on. And then so you've got your formal feedback, and then you've got what we call the informal feedback, which if you're taking someone else's class, can you give them one or two things that went well, one or two things that maybe could do better the next time? But I think you hit the nail on the head that having the culture that appreciates feedback, it's something that you have to develop. And I think it starts with, whoever is in charge or the leader asking for feedback and being open to it. So trying to create that culture is really important, and then having the certain follow-throughs that everybody's really engaged and interested in getting better. And I think that's the challenge of trying to not only find but cultivate that, so that people consistently are trying to get better or seek out feedback rather than just seeing it as a negative thing they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, feedback is a gift. You can either put it in the closet or you can use it and cherish it every day. And Greater Culture kind of goes to that.
Yeah.
That
The choice of the name was meaningful, and it's funny when people either come to experience it or kind of ask, they're like, "Oh yeah, it makes sense like why you went that route that you did for the name." So
Yeah, so it's something that meant something to you to
it did, yeah.
create a culture that meant something. So,
Yeah.
you know, can you offer any advice? Somebody, hey, I want to start a new business. What little nuggets of advice would you just kind of throw out there to someone?
I think either finding or networking with either people who have done what you're interested in doing or have found a way to be successful as a business owner, and having a mentor or a guide is probably the number one thing I would recommend, just to help cut down on some of the challenges or issues you might face, and rather than learning it the hard way for yourself, seeing if you can avoid maybe some of those pitfalls early by having somebody who can say, hey, I did that, I would recommend maybe you go this direction or that direction. So I think having a mentor or having somebody you can ask a lot of questions for is a huge benefit. And then the second piece is to identify and figure out, do you love business and understanding and learning how business works just as much as you love the skill set or the job that you're doing? Because you can love coaching or woodworking or whatever it is, and that's great, but that'll only take you so far if you can't mix it with understanding the business side on the back end. And so you're almost going to have to learn a whole nother job and skill set on the business side to match what you're already doing when you offer a certain product or service.
Absolutely, and sometimes those things don't align.
They don't.
And it sometimes creates conflict in what you do as a business owner. You have to make those decisions. Is that what's most important to me, right?
Yep.
Whether it's maintaining my reputation or making money. Well, reputation's the right choice, right? So you have to make those choices in business, and that's an interesting thing. Any future goals or upcoming events that you have going on?
Yeah, we just came off of our Memorial Day weekend, which is always a big weekend in the CrossFit community. We do a big memorial workout, which was really fun. For us, the big thing that we're focused on now is just continuing to try and find ways to not only network, but identify people who are interested in improving the quality of their life through movement and nutrition and through a community. So we're continuing to focus on that. We do a lot of stuff within our community of having a social event each month and different ways that we try and connect people. One thing we're about to kick off here in June is we call it Lifestyle Bingo, where we give our members a bingo card to start the week that has just a variety of things on there, like go for a 5-minute walk, or attend one workout class, or do certain things, sleep for 8 hours. And if they do it, they get to make the X, and their goal is to try and see if they can create a bingo over the course of a week. And then we've got raffles and prizes and stuff like that. So there's things we try and do to try and make a healthy lifestyle fun and something that is consistent and sustainable. So those are some of the big things for us coming up, is just continuing to try and find people that we can help. And then once they are in and join, trying to find ways to keep them consistent and make sure that they're getting the help that they need.
That's lifestyle bingo.
Lifestyle bingo.
I love that. That's a fun thing. So, if you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, definitely check out Lifestyle Bingo, Greater Culture CrossFit. That's awesome. Let's change gears for a second. So beyond going to work and being a business owner and coach, what are some other local spots in Fuquay Arena that's a favorite for you or for your wife?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind, and they've been phenomenal in terms of they've catered meals for us, and it's a really great spot. Nils Mediterranean, Ton and his team over there have some fantastic food, and they started up brunch again, which is really, really delicious. So, and I know the episode we did with you mentioned the Euro spot. Absolutely love the Euro spot as well. Every Thursday night, you can catch us at Winging It playing trivia as often as we can. I know they're a chamber member as well. So there really is so many phenomenal spots, and there's really so many great coffee shops too. And we've tried to stop at as many as we can. Cultivate's great. There's one in Holly Springs that's 3 minutes away from our gym called Thanks a Latte that we really enjoy going there too. So there's a lot of spots that we really do enjoy, both food and for coffee and things like that. So those would be a couple that I think come top of mind.
That's awesome. There's so many great businesses in our community. It's really hard to pick one of anything.
It is.
Absolutely. Is there one surprising thing about Greater Culture CrossFit that somebody like, hey, I'm coming to visit, I'm going to get surprised by this?
Yeah, it's something that we didn't realize was going to happen, but I think has. One, people are surprised at the look of our building when they walk in. I think when you hear CrossFit, you think you have a certain image in your head of it's going to be like raw and intense and this and that. And they walk in, and we have a pretty nice front of house area that's pretty welcoming. And people are like, oh, this isn't what I was maybe expecting. And then the second piece to that is when they actually try out a class, I think they're surprised that it's not as hard or intimidating or scary as maybe they thought. 'Cause I think there's a certain brand association that people make of like, oh, CrossFit's for a certain type of person, or it's really hard, or this or that. And you'll see every type of person in our class. Like we said, we've got folks, young teenagers all the way through older folks, and all different levels of their fitness journey. Some folks are coming in and they're like, I'm just starting and I've been walking and that's about it, and great. And we've got other folks who've got big goals on things they're trying to do, whether it's hiking certain places or certain competitions they're trying to get ready for. So I think a big surprise is, one, when you walk in, the space might be a little bit more welcoming than you anticipate. And then two, when you take a class, you're like, oh, I can actually do this. So that's our goal, is to be accessible for everybody, regardless of where you're at in your health and fitness journey.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where can our listeners or our viewers find Greater Culture CrossFit? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so we are located in Fuquay Arena, just up 55. The address is 2205 North Grassland Drive. We're part of a strip mall. There's a Triple Barrel Tavern, a salon, and we are on the end cap there. Like I said, you could find us. Our class times range from the morning to the evening. Culture.co is a website, so you can go on there and learn a little bit more about us and see some photos and some things that we're about. If you're interested to see what it looks like, on Instagram, greater_culture, you'll see different photos and videos of what our clients are doing and what they're doing in the gym. The Greater Culture podcast, so that's going to be a lot of conversations with different owners and folks in the health and wellness space, learning about all different topics. So you can go learn a little bit more about things there. We do have a business Facebook page, Greater Culture CrossFit, so you can come check us out there. So a lot of different ways to get connected. We do have a YouTube channel as well, so all the different platforms to get a feel and a sense of what we're all about. But the best way would be to come stop by and try out a class. We do 7 days of free classes just to try us out, see what you think, see if it's the right fit for you and what you're looking for. And so we welcome anyone to take advantage of that.
Brad, I want to thank you for being a fantastic guest and going to be continuing to host the Better Together podcast with myself over the next several months, and really excited about that. And one of the other things, places you can find Brad and Greater Culture CrossFit is his involvement with the Chamber of Commerce. You're going to see him at a lot of ribbon cuttings and business after hours and breakfast. So thank you very much for being a great member and board member with the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to thank you for being a part of this. So, folks, thank you to our listeners for joining us for the Better Together podcast. I'm Marty from Rescue Wood Rehab. Been here with Brad Marshall from Greater Culture CrossFit. So, again, I'm Marty.
And I'm Brad.
And we are Better Together.
We're better together. It's a weekly podcast. We're better together. You should know that there's more in the dash. We're better together. Fuquay Arena, Chamber of Commerce. We're better together podcast.